What is this thing? It's Polaroid, right? I'd say arguably Polaroid is one of the most recognizable products out there. You see this photo in a white frame and you immediately know it's a Polaroid picture. But Polaroid has been around for many decades and its products have taken a lot of shapes and different forms, but none have been quite as tiny or weird as the Polaroid I-Zone. If you were around during the late 90s and early 2000s, you might recognize this really funky camera. And you were also probably aware that digicams were on the rise, and as expensive as they were incredibly convenient and they were pretty exciting for the public. But for Polaroid, digicams could mean the end. The Polaroid I-Zone was sort of like a last-ditch attempt to appeal to younger people, and they really wanted to show the youth how cool Polaroid still was. In this video, we're going to take a look back at the Polaroid I-Zone's history. We're going to see its rise, its fall, and its very brief impact it had on pop culture in the early 2000s. Now, as Y2K approached, Polaroid was struggling. It was really essential that in a world where digicams were on the rise, Polaroid still had a place in culture, and the easiest way to find a place in culture is with the youth. Now, the issue was Polaroid was essentially an art brand. The average Polaroid user was 42 years old, and studies at the time showed that less than 60% of people under the age of 30 saw Polaroid photography as fun. They had a reputation for having expensive film, bulky cameras. Now, they were great for an office job or a kid's first birthday party, but they weren't exactly something children were bringing to sleepovers. And the question was, what's the next move going to be? It turns out the answer wasn't about getting bigger, but getting smaller. In came the Polaroid I-Zone. Now, Polaroid was very deliberate about the branding of this camera. It was important that they played down the Polaroid branding instead of leaning into it if they wanted to appeal to teenagers who thought Polaroid was a really boring brand. And that's exactly why they shrunk the Polaroid logo and put it directly above the I-Zone logo. The I-Zone logo had bright colors, cool fonts, and an emphasis on personal identity. The I was meant to represent individuality or the internet, and Zone was meant to imply having your own space or having your own world. Everything about this brand needed to feel modern and young. The I-Zone packaging was mainly blue. It had ripples coming off of the I-Zone logo to give this sort of futuristic Y2K feeling that was really popular during the early 2000s. The actual cameras, they sort of looked like toys. They were essentially battery-powered hunks of bright plastic that had 3 exposure settings and a lens. The film itself came in these tiny little packages that kind of looked like candy wrappers. And the photos themselves came with these little strips that were really colourful and had fun patterns on them that would appeal to the children. The process of taking the photo was really simple. You look through the viewfinder, take the photo, you pull the strip out of the camera, wait a few minutes, and then your sexy image would develop. With these cameras, Polaroid took an incredible risk, but they created a trend. And for a brief moment, the Polaroid I-Zone became a staple in early 2000s pop culture. Polaroid wasn't going to release these cameras silently, no. They would have an intense advertising campaign. Most of the commercials I found online were of course aimed at their teenage audience. They were fun, they were quick to the point, and they were very cheeky. One even starred a young Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad before he was in Breaking Bad. But this wasn't going to be enough, so Polaroid leaned heavily into teen celebrity culture at the time. But one of their most notable and successful campaigns was during Britney Spears' You Drive Me Crazy tour in 2000. Polaroid signed on as a co-sponsor and branded the I-Zone the official camera of her North American tour. Britney would carry the camera around on stage. She'd take pictures of the audience or of herself. At select venues, there would be tents and photo booths along with cameras on site for fans to take photos of themselves with, along with posters hung up bragging about how cool and hip the I-Zone was. They went at this hard, partnering with radio stations to give away free I-Zone cameras and free Britney tickets. For example, there was a Meet Britney contest where fans would write mail describing where they would stick an I-Zone photo of Britney Spears. What would they win from this? Let me tell you. Fans would win a VIP prize package in which they'd get a flight to West Palm Beach, limo service, $1,000 spending money, 4 concert tickets with backstage access, autographed I-Zone cameras and CDs, and a personal meet and greet with Britney Spears herself. All of this reached nearly 1.5 million teens worldwide. And if that wasn't enough, Britney Spears would also feature in I-Zone TV commercials, posters, and magazine ads for tween girls. The thing about teenagers in this new generation, however, is traditional marketing wasn't the only way to reach them, because there was this new cool fun thing called the internet. And that's where all the teens were hanging out. Learning this, Polaroid of course had to make a website for the I-Zone. It had bright colors, animated graphics, it even had games and downloadable content. At one point they were even advertising the 2004 movie Sleepover, which they actually had an I-Zone which was part of a plot for some reason. I don't know. All this being said, Polaroid's efforts paid off. Studies at the time showed Polaroid's relevancy with people under the age of 30 increased by 43%, and 82% of teenagers now dubbed Polaroid a cool brand. Not to mention that the Polaroid I-Zone became the #1 best-selling camera between 1999 and 2000, and they held that place for over a year. So everything seemed to be working out for Polaroid. So what went wrong? Now, to put it plainly, the Polaroid I-Zone was a fad. It was a product release at the perfect time for it to thrive, but then inevitably burn and come crashing back down. As fun as it was to use the Polaroid I-Zone, having to constantly pay for expensive film sort of dampened that experience for the teenagers using it. And there was nothing that Polaroid could do that would trump the convenience of using a digicam, buying it, and never having to purchase film or develop it ever again. Not to mention, it was really hard to justify constantly paying for expensive film when the photos you got were the size of your thumb. Looking at the bigger picture, no pun intended, Polaroid filed for bankruptcy in 2001 and stopped making Polaroid I-Zone film entirely in 2006. None of this is to say that the Polaroid I-Zone was a complete failure, but it was made for an analog world where everything was starting to become digital. As it stands today, Polaroid doesn't seem to have any intention in bringing back I-Zone film or even capabilities to bring back I-Zone film. And any film you might find today on eBay or in thrift stores probably won't develop any pictures anymore, considering the chemistry inside of the photos that actually make the pictures develop has probably all dried up by now. So as it stands today, the Polaroid I-Zone is truly dead. It seems today the Polaroid I-Zone has mostly been forgotten by the public and faded into obscurity, and people in the Polaroid community today seem to look down on it because it was a desperate attempt by Polaroid to remain culturally relevant, and it was kind of embarrassing. In my humble opinion, I'd say that there is something uniquely charming about the Polaroid I-Zone's aesthetic and the sticky photos that came with it. It was flashy, unapologetic, and it encouraged people to be individuals. In a world where everything is beige, sad, and uniform, I think something like this has been sorely missed. And today, in a world where everything is digital and everything is online, it seems that Polaroids hold a lot more value today because it's something you can hold in your hand. It's something you can make yourself. And with a generation of kids today that have only known the internet their entire lives, maybe something like this is what they need. A stupid little camera that allows them to take pictures, make memories, and hold something tangible in their hands. Maybe the Polaroid I-Zone is something we all need. If you made it to the end, I just want to say thank you for watching. This is a very niche, weird topic, but I find stuff like this incredibly interesting and I plan to make more videos. So if you do like stuff like this, please like and subscribe. Please.